Welcome members to another weekly market update. Please, as always, check the other video where I talk about the overall market. And as you can see, there it is. Let's look over my shoulder right now as we look at some individual positions, starting with Tile. And this one, actually, out of the blue on earnings, was triggered. There was that. Well, that's actually where I got in, right down here. And so still very nice profit, but the line in the sand was really crossed right there. So a bit of a shocker there, but you know, profit is a profit, and that's what that's what we have these stop losses in place. ANSS. That was the entry point down there, and so very nicely up, and it's just chugging away higher, so that one's fine. IMMU. There was the entry point there, $9. Looking for this one to bounce. Actually, it's sort of like bumped into the 200-day again. Up it goes. It crosses this line here, 18, be significant, and then that will be a nice 100% gain from the stock alone. Hopefully, once it gets above 18. Let's look at FXB. Sorry, I'm getting my wires crossed here. FXB is interesting because this week it may have broken trend, and that was the line I was watching. Let's just look at the bigger picture here. I don't rehearse any of this. What I do is every weekend I check my weekly positions, if any alerts haven't gone off during the week, that is, to see where we're at with them. And let's just see if that trend is still intact, and then we'll look at why. So there's the trend, and now, I mean, the entry point was way down here anyway, but it could just be on trend, and that's one of those things where looking at the chart is very instructive, because I mean, there it is. It's like it's still there now. Any lower than that, I'll be looking at taking a nice profit there, but it needs to hold that position at the least. Let's try and get a clue about what's behind it. Let's look at the dollar. You can see what happened was the dollar jumped up this week, and I mean, it was very oversold anyway, so it's not another counter attack by the dollar like they saw one here isn't out of the question, and that's going to it's bound to have an effect on the pound because everything's pegged against the dollar. So what we're seeing here is we can say, look, what's behind that move? To the uninitiated or people who aren't watching charts, I think what's going on. They wouldn't know whether to get out or stay in. So what we can see though is that, well, the dollar blipped up, so that would explain one thing, and two, it's still very much on its trend line. Any lower than that though, and it's time to take profits. So that's obviously had an effect on gold, as we should see right now. But that's what's interesting, because even though the dollar counter rallied this week a little bit, gold actually was kind of pretty steady, so that could be a bullish indication for gold. So it's still stuck in that channel of support and resistance there around 124 to 128. That's a very interesting turn of events, and as you know, I've been commentating saying that the longer the gold stays above the 40-week, the more the 40-week turns up, and as it is doing right there, as you can see, and then we'll be reaching that point where it's going to be crunch time for gold, and is it on a collision course with that rising 40-week? What does it do? Signs indicating that it could well bounce off of it. So we will be watching that closely, and it could be a brand new bull market underway for gold once it sort of stabilizes. RDNT. There's the weekly chart. Let's look at the daily chart. So that was the entry point around here, and then it really went higher, but as you know, I wasn't that overly comfortable with this arcing going along here like that. But as long as it stayed above this sort of entry level here and around the 50-day, it's fine. I mean, it's still very nice profit even right there, but it needs to hold this line around 12, and as it is on the weekly chart, you see it's done this before, come around and stabilize. So we're looking for it to sort of sort itself out around there. But we definitely won't be taking a loss on that. The line in the sand, at the very least, will be the entry point. So let's give it a bit of a chance there. It did get quite ahead of itself here, bounced off the 40-week before. Maybe it just needs to let the 40-week catch up with it. Still rolling profit though, which is nice. DQ, there was that line. It bounced off of it nicely, looking very nice indeed. That was the entry point around here. Classic, and up she goes. Stabilizes, that's fine. If you're in around 40, 46, and you're sitting on almost like 1,000-point gain, that's pretty decent. And stop loss will remain where it was before. FCEL. So this was one, actually, I'm looking at the weekly chart for this one, because this one has sort of little penny stock, long-term, slow-burning things. Yeah, quite a lot of so there was the entry point around here, anywhere around there, as it clung to its 40-week, and it's done so with such respect. It's unbelievable. It got so close on the weekly chart and stayed above it, and burst time, and it's fine. This one, as long as I'm above the on the weekly, the 40-week, then I'm in, and just let it run. Nothing wrong with that. ONCS. Likewise, similar deal on the weekly chart. It's actually right on it, on that rising there. So that's still creating a very low risk entry point, but also it needs to hang on to that, and it's right on it right there. So it doesn't get any sort of like tighter as an entry point than that. And I'm going by the weekly chart for when to get out. As long as that one stays above the 40-week. That's great, and it's so clean and tiny, but it's a shame if it doesn't hold above there, because it's looking really good. So I'm not going to open up any brand new positions this week. Got a lot open, and the market's kind of amber short term. So I'll speak to you in the cryptocurrencies.